Thank you for joining us for Central Georgia Focus. I'm your host today, Liz Fabian from the Center for Collaborative Journalism, and we are here for the Ask Mayor Miller edition, the Retro 2022 Looking Back with our Mayor Lester Miller. Thank you so much for joining us, Mayor Miller. I hope you had a great Christmas.
I've had a great Christmas and looking forward to a good New Year.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Well, let's take a look back a little bit, but first of all, I know it must have seemed very cruel to have two people succumb to the elements again this year. Just 2 years ago, as you were taking office, the same thing happened, and you launched this massive effort to take care of the homeless in our community with the Brookdale Warming Center. So I know it must be very disheartening. So what is being done now to take care of those people?
Well, it was very disheartening. Well, a couple of things. Number one, there's no confirmation that anyone passed away because of the cold. I think there's some autopsy to be done, but certainly the elements were right for it, so if it comes back that that's the case, it's just something we have to deal with. On a positive note, hundreds of people worked together for the last month or so preparing as soon as we found out about this bad weather, working together. Myself rode around for hours on Thursday looking for folks that needed to get out of the shelter, get into a shelter. I was able to contact EOC. They picked up a gentleman who was in a wheelchair, got him to Brookdale. Sister Teresa was out. She helped me out with someone as well, getting him into Brookdale, Salvation Army. Jake Hall was riding around. Gene O'Neill went and picked someone up underneath the bridge on Arkwright that needed a place to stay and didn't know about Brookdale and was able to get him there. So all the community came together and rallied. We had some extreme temperatures. We put up about 300 people in multiple locations, either on permanent or part-time basis. So, but for the great efforts of all those people, two would have been multiple by 10 times. So I'm very excited about what lies ahead for the future with the homeless situation that we have in Macon. But more importantly, I want to let everyone know, including our fire chief who worked 24/7, making sure people had rides. Our code enforcement was passing out literature all throughout the day and night before this cold. So rallying together as a community and coming together is the reason we don't have numbers that should have been off the chart for these types of elements. So we had a place to go for people, so I feel good about that. No one has to sleep out in the cold. We'll always provide shelter for them. We just got to make sure that they're willing to go, and sometimes they fight back.
And of course, we had an issue too with Vineville Christian Towers and the freezing pipes and the flooding. What other kinds of situations did y'all have to handle in this cold?
Well, it was a lot. We want to make sure that people didn't start fires and succumb to their injuries there. So that was something that we were able to avoid for the most part this time. But we did have a lot of places, a couple of nursing homes. We had the Christian Towers there that were doing some work there, created a situation because it's on the top floor, became a danger for the residents there. But once again, everyone pulled together. Our Mayor Pro Tem was there raising money, making sure that they had vans available. Our coroner came together, the fire chief to put them in places where they need to stay. The landlords are ultimately responsible for that because it happens on their property. We want to make sure that no one goes without. So I think just rallying together to as a community to continue to address the needs of people there. A lot of challenges when you get frozen pipes. Things burst, they become hazards there, and I just know that we have a plan in place, and our EMA has done a wonderful job as well as getting the word out.
And of course, there's more developments to come in the coming year at Brookdale too, as well, right? I mean, there's more space there. Any plans to expand beyond what they're doing with showers and such?
Of course, we have another section that we opened up on an emergency basis in the back that could house up to, I think, 100 people. More services going to be provided there, more opportunities can be provided there. So I'm looking forward to expanding that process, but also we're looking forward to some good news coming up in the next month or so where people can transition to housing. Housing first is the model that we use, and we got to make sure people not only get a house, but they get the wraparound services necessary, and we believe we'll be able to do that through United Way in Brookdale.
And I know there's been talk in other communities, and we've talked about it here on Ask Mayor Miller, about what may be coming up legislatively to help with these persistent people who want to stay on the streets for some reason, whether it's some sort of mental issues or drug abuse. Anything coming up on the horizon that you can see? Well,
we've certainly been advocating with our local delegations for continued mental health treatment and some incentives to make sure that people take care of their less fortunate. What I'm happy to see is Macon-Bibb County has led the way on these warming centers. Just this past weekend on 13, I heard at least 3 other places mention warming centers, whether it's a church in Houston County, whether it's a place in Monroe County. They're starting to recognize that they too can help out and take care of this on a regional aspect. So I think that everybody's learning a little bit more about that, getting more educated about the challenges we have, particularly coming out of a pandemic. So certainly we're willing to make sure that everybody does their part, and we're encouraged by the fact that our neighbors are getting on board with this project.
And we've seen in other large cities, San Francisco comes to mind, other places where there's almost like a sub-drug culture where people live on the street so they can keep up their habit. Are we seeing a lot of fentanyl influence here in Macon and Bibb County?
Well, I know that we have the issue here as well. It's very dependent. A lot of times people are homeless because of mental health issues, and then they get into drugs and things like that. I don't think we've had the explosion here that we've had. I saw an article recently that Housing County had a large number over last year, but certainly Macon-Bibb County is like any other community. When you have issues like that, when you have fentanyl so readily available in the community, and people are looking for that natural high, or looking to get off the streets, or looking to, to take away the pain, they're willing to try anything. And unfortunately, you have one exposure to fentanyl and a bad situation, and it's going to take your life. So we're going to continue to address that. There's part of the opioid settlement that has come out recently. Macon-Bibb County is one of the plaintiffs in that, and we're certainly going to be using our money in an appropriate way to help people in those various situations. So I'm excited about the next couple of years. We'll be getting some settlement money in, and we'll be putting that to good use and saving people's lives.
Okay, I think we got off to a little bit of a downer start to this Ask Mayor Miller, but we did have some serious issues to talk about. So let's look back. What are some of the highlights that you think about for 2022?
Well, 2022 is seeing a lot of economic development highlights. When we look at crime and poverty and how do you really change the trajectory of people, it's really providing them good quality jobs. And our industrial authority has done a wonderful job. This year we have $652 million in investment, private investment, but more importantly, 660 new jobs created in Macon. And together with our workforce development, we can see those kids that we need, those people in our community that need it the most, are going to get some great jobs, not only this year, but for years to come. So that's one of the highlights that I say. And of course, we continue to have multiple projects going on across the community. Every parts of our community, East Bank, the Macon Mall, and the Amphitheater project, and Houston Avenue are three that I can think of that are very important projects that are going to continue to develop over the next year.
And three very important projects that we're going to talk more about when we come back. So stay tuned for this edition of Central Georgia Focus. Hello again, and thank you for joining us for Central Georgia Focus. I'm Liz Fabian for this Ask Mayor Miller edition, and we have Macon-Bibb County Mayor Lester Miller joining us today. We're going to take a look back on some of the things, the highlights of 2022, and of course look ahead to 2023. And of course, one of the biggest items, I would say, probably on your look back is the groundbreaking for the mall, for the amphitheater, for the plans. We took a walk through not long ago with the county commission. So how pleased are you with the progress? Are we on schedule? What are we anticipating for 2023?
Well, the progress is always something that's hard to measure with me because I wanted it done yesterday. So I think we're on schedule. As much as I don't want to admit they're on schedule, what they told me about in the very beginning, I'm always trying to push them a little bit. The site looks wonderful. I think people are they've seen now what it's going to offer. It's going to be a marquee piece for us, especially during our 200-year celebration. The pickleball, whatever you want to call it, it's coming along fine. We had a nice look at that. The courtrooms there are going to be a good place to go. Board of Elections, I think everyone's going to be very, very pleased with. And many of the other governmental offices are going to be there. Quite honestly, we're getting a lot of good calls for retail. I'm not going to mention any of those just yet, but I expect some new retail to come to the mall and some other new exciting things there to really complement that, along with a few other restaurants there as we begin to open up this time next year. So we're very excited about the amphitheater. It's going to be a very unique, safe experience for everyone, and we just can't wait for it to open.
So, of course, we saw just a little bit of the video going through when we took the tour, but so generally, the mall proper, I mean, the mall, like from where JCPenney was up until you get to the old Belk, which will be the pickleball, all of that is kind of going to stay just regular retail, and then everything countywide is on the other side where the old Sears, current Burlington is?
Yeah, so basically where the Burlington is, old times, and all the places that are there now, recruitment, you'll have all that right there. But that's most of the governmental wing. You'll have the planning and zoning, our Safe Built will be there. We have a new library coming as well there, which will be nice. The Board of Elections will be there. So we'll have all those at that one particular end. And then we'll have retail in the middle, and you'll get down to some entertainment near your Belks area and maybe your Macy's areas there. And you'll continue to have retail there. And you'll get down to some probably some additional out-of-the-box type of retail that you'll have there, and including some more items of food there. And then
Items of food, is that a restaurant?
Well, potential restaurant, but certainly some other choices there, some other beverages probably there. And then you'll go out to some more entertainment, and then eventually you'll have the Mactown or Battery Park type places you'll have there that you can walk around and enjoy, a little park, hotel, and then you'll have the amphitheater there. So there's a lot more room for expansion. We're taking baby steps now. We'll start with the amphitheater and the pickleball. You know, it won't be very long before we'll be hosting an event there with 1,000 people coming from all over the United States to play pickleball in a tournament there. And while they're here for 3 or 4 days, they'll be spending lots of money and enjoying the great things that Macon-Bibb County has to offer.
I know you mentioned the Board of Elections. There's been a little bit of concern I've heard from some of those members in terms of where the Board of Elections is. So if you can remember what the old mall is like, or even downstairs from Burlington, right? That is going to be, like, say, if you're looking from the mall and looking where Sears used to be, kind of the Board of Elections is to the left in the back corner.
That's right.
And then as you go toward the right, toward the home and garden of Sears, sorry if you just moved to Macon and you don't remember this, but I think most of us can kind of remember that. And that's where the new courtrooms are.
That's correct.
You have 2 courtrooms to kind of alleviate some of the crowding downtown. Can you tell us a little bit about that philosophy?
Sure. Well, during the pandemic, of course, we needed bigger courtrooms with more places to spread out, more COVID friendly. So it's something that you never know is going to happen again, or we may get into that situation. But also, we do have a pretty tight court downtown, and there's some room for other types of alternative dispute resolution, so that gives you time to do that. But also, we know that like our moot courts, our school could use those to prepare for their events that they have. A lot of mediations could happen over there. Some of the domestic cases could happen over there. Even some personal injury cases can happen there to kind of free up the downtown. You don't have to worry about parking, of course, at the mall there. You can get in and out of there pretty easily.
Jurors won't have to worry about
going
out
about that.
Feeding the meter.
So there's a lot of great places that you can have over there. The Board of Elections, you know, there were some concerns in the very beginning, but now they've warmed up to it. Now they've seen the plans. We've addressed any issues they may have. People are always going to be inside. I don't care how many people come to vote, they'll always be inside, out of the elements. It takes about 80 seconds to walk from your car to the Board of Elections, which is a very short walk. They like it because you can store equipment there. You know, we're going to have to build a 4 times as large a pay rental space at the other location, because all those equipments have to be stored somewhere and have to be tested on a regular basis. So I think everyone's satisfied now that they put their eyes on it. Commissioner Lucas was very, you know, had a lot of questions herself, but she's alleviated a lot of those concerns about where the ballot box is going to be placed at. How secure
And that's
going to
be closer to, okay, back to the old Sears.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's that semicircle thing, which I think some of the Board of Elections folks thought that was going to be where they were going to be, so that people could just drop off at the door and go in instead of kind of coming in. But like, as you said, if there are long lines for early voting, let's say, everybody will be inside. Nobody will be out in the heat or in the cold or whatever.
You have a large hallway there. You've got a heated and cooled space. That will be sheltered as well. So plenty of parking, no issues with parking. Nobody wrapped around. We saw on TV we had the last election, people were wrapped around the building, whether it's cold, rainy, whatever may come. So I think they're certainly pleased with it now. It's going to be a state-of-the-art facility that people can be proud of, and I can tell you the workers there at the Board of Elections are thrilled about the possibility of having all their projects on one site.
The storage, too, is right there by the loading dock. And is that where a drop box will eventually be?
Right. There'll be a secure drop box there with the cameras and everything there as well, so people don't have to go very far to get out of their car to deposit that there. But more importantly for the workers, they've got a loading dock that they haven't had before, so that get it right off of the truck, roll it down the hallway, plug it in, test your equipment, and you're good to go.
Now, you have that other little area, the kind of field of dreams, I guess I called it, over there by the old Bibb Mill site. You're calling it the East Bank development.
Right.
And you've purchased all of that land. Have those deals gone through? Because the mayor was that county has agreed to spend up to $14 million to pick up the rest of those parcels so you could market it to a developer.
That's true. We've done all of our due diligence on that property. It's scheduled to close this Friday. So we're excited about putting that out. We've already started entertaining some calls from developers. In January, we're going to start that process. We've got several people entered and open up a hotel there, potential loft development or restaurant. So we're very excited about that. Alex Morrison is working on that project. He's, of course, takes care of our UDA. But we've had a lot of interest. That's all I'll say right now, but we've had a lot of interest there. We do realize that in the very near future, the first quarter of next year, we expect the National Park conversation to come up soon, and that's going to be great timing for some announcements we have about a developer. So that project can't happen quick enough either, but it's going to take a little while to make sure everything's taken care of properly. But due diligence went very well, and we're very satisfied about the deal we got there on the property, and we're looking forward to engaging that entire East Macon community with this project.
And so you're saying that the national park is not an if, it's a when, right?
Well, certainly,
Is that the way it looks?
I don't want to get ahead of them, but I mean, you know, with all the great work that's been doing there, with our indigenous folks that come back home, just the economic impact when they came to Macon was something that we all can be proud of. But the way they've really tied our community, and we're joining at the hip like it was, I think has sent a clear message of unity across our community, across our state of Georgia, but certainly all of our Congress folks and our senators are all on one accord. You know, Washington still has its politics, but we know they're going to do the right thing, and 2023 is going to be a great year for Macon-Bibb County.
All right, well, stay tuned because we'll talk more about 2023 and take a little look back at the past as well. Stay tuned. Welcome back to this Central Georgia Focus Ask Mayor Miller edition. I'm your host today, Liz Fabian from the Center for Collaborative Journalism. We've been talking with Mayor Miller about what has happened in 2022 as well as looking ahead to what's coming up in 2023. Of course, Mayor Miller, one of your big initiatives of 2022 also was putting into place the Macon Violence Prevention Program. And tell us a little bit about how that is going. And I know, you know, we see in the news, we see from the sheriff's office where we are with homicides, way beyond where we would ever want to be. So how is that affecting your plans and what we're seeing for Macon violence prevention?
Well, I think the Macon violence prevention, like we talked about, is for prevention for the future. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not going to stop bullets. The sheriff's still going to have to do the things that the sheriff does. The DA's going to have to do the things that the DA does, and the court's going to have to do the things that they do. It's got to all work together. When you're attacking root causes, when you're getting into mental health, you're getting into the root causes of poverty and what causes folks to pick up a gun, conflict resolution. It's something that you can't just wave a wand at and make it go away. We had always anticipated that there's going to be a period of time where the numbers were going to go up, and at some point in time, it's like COVID. You hit a wall and you continue to do those things and it goes down. So certainly we hope that we've hit that wall now at the numbers that we're at now. Certainly every life is precious, and I don't like to count numbers, and I've constantly said that again. This is about people's lives and it's not about numbers. But we have a small group of people in Macon that are violent, and a lot of them need to be in jail. And although you can't police yourself out or arrest yourself out of the situation we're in, people that commit violent acts and get arrested for that, they need to stay in jail until their case is handled, and we have to do a better job of keeping them there. So I think that, you know, when we look back this year, we're going to see some roller coasters. We're going to see some period of time where our crime dipped down about 38%, and then we had one spat. And we have to look at those things, and I call it an exit interview. When I go back and I look at the crime that we've had this year, we try to look at what was going on. You know, well, we had one situation where created 4 or 5 different shootings or a death, and that's
so
tied
some
to
of
that.
them are related.
Oh,
but,
certainly, yeah.
As far as the roots, though, I mean,
Domestic.
what do you see?
I think what we see in a lot, 25% is probably domestic related, whether it's family or husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, but usually family situations. I'd say another 25% are gang related. You had some situations that happened 3 years ago, and we're still feeling the effects of that. There's still that blood between, you know, the bad blood between this group and that group, and they can't resolve their conflict without picking up a weapon. That's part of it. And then you have some situations where people go to jail, they get out, they retaliate, and I think when you add those things up, it's a bad mix. You also have to have better housing and better jobs, and that's some of the things we're working on to do that, but that doesn't happen overnight as well. You have to build those homes. You got to bring those jobs here, and it's just going to be a process. And you got to have a good education, and the school system has turned it around, and we're going to continue to do that. But I think that when you go back and look at it, you can really look and see what caused the situation we're in now, how we can maybe prevent it in the future. I'm happy to see, I was driving around this last week, and for the first time since I've been mayor, I saw patrols out there. I saw people getting speeding tickets, that an area that's being monitored. And I haven't seen that in quite a while, and I think we're finally getting some additional police there, and they're getting appropriated in the right ways, and I think we're starting to turn the corner. The number of deaths we have now is certainly not acceptable, and nobody is sitting back saying that it is. But we have to continue to do those things, those positive things like jobs and the other things that we're doing for our community to move forward at the same time. We can't just sit back and say, let's stop crime first and all this other stuff will happen. It doesn't work like that. If you don't attack these root causes and do these other types of other things, your crime's going to continue to go up.
Of course, that affects recruitment for industry and stuff. They, just Google, and then if you see what comes up.
Right.
And so how do you explain that? Like, say, I'm a big executive from a company that is considering this place, and they say, ooh, what about this crime? I mean, I know it weighs heavily on all of those who bring people into the community.
It does, but to be honest with you, we've had the largest reinvestment in industry that we've ever had in our history this last year. You look at Coca-Cola reinvesting a certain amount of money here in Macon-Bibb County. Look at YKK, Urban Tissue, Nichiha. Those places live in Macon, right? They work here. They know what they see in the media every day on crime.
Right.
But they also know that Macon has a great quality of life. It's a great place to come. We've been recognized all across, whether people want to admit it or not. 2023 is one of the top places to visit as a destination. People know that. Maybe the people in our own community don't realize that, how great of a place that they have and where they live at, because they constantly do get the notifications and they see the bad things going on. But don't you think these multi-million-dollar companies do their homework? They know where they can get workforce at. They know where they got the best infrastructure, the best water at, and they see the good quality of life. People know that when they come to Macon, they're going to be entice employees to come here because you're going to have a lot for them to do. You're going to have a great, vibrant downtown. You're going to have a new amphitheater. You're going to have the Coliseum. You're going to have the rich musical history that we have here. And we got some of the best universities here in Macon-Bibb County and the best hospitals here. So people want to come here. So it's not as challenging as it used to be. Last year, I gave you an example about riding around with some people that were looking to open up in Macon-Bibb County, and they looked at the gateways to our community. Now this year, I had one person, made my day. I was riding around showing them some places in Macon-Bibb County, and they noticed the new trees and how we had done the gateway in that particular place. And they had been on a visit several years ago, and they remembered how bad it was getting off the interstate. Now I can't control the large $500 million project we have going on. We can't do those just yet. But they recognize that we're making a concerted effort to keep those up. There's trees there, there's pine straw, there's flowers there, and they know we care about our community, so it gives them hope of the future. But also they're well vested here, and they continue to show it by reinvesting more dollars in our community.
All right, well, lots on the horizon coming up, and we'll have to save the rest of the questions for the next time. Remember, you can be part of Ask Mayor Miller by sending your questions to mercerccj@gmail.com, and we'll continue throughout 2023. Happy New Year, everyone.